Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas. Okay, today we're diving into a classic, something from all the way back in 1511 by the great thinker Desiderius Erasmus. It's a book called The Praise of Folly. And let me tell you, it completely turned the idea of wisdom on its head. So, in this explainer, we're going to break down how this book makes this powerful, satirical, and honestly, surprisingly profound case for being a fool. It basically argues that a little bit of foolishness, it isn't just fun, it's absolutely essential for a happy life. So, the first brilliant move Erasmus makes is that the book isn't narrated by some, stuffy, boring scholar. Nope. Instead, he hands the microphone over to a character he invented, the goddess Folly herself. And wow, she is not shy. Folly basically grabs the spotlight, takes the stage, and delivers this grand speech, an oration, all in her own honor. And her argument, it's pretty simple. She claims she's the most powerful and beneficial force in the entire universe, and that all the joy in the world, yeah, that's her doing. And Folly, well, she establishes her credentials in a really interesting way. See, she wasn't born from some dreary ancient god. Oh no, her father is Plutus, the god of riches, and her mother is youth itself. She says she was nursed by drunkenness and ignorance. And her best friends, her entourage, they're all the things that make life not just bearable, but actually enjoyable. Okay, so this all builds to her first major claim, and it's a big one, that without her, life itself would be totally impossible, unbearable, and you know what? It probably never would have even gotten started in the first place. So, Folly paints this picture of two different worlds. On one hand, you have the world of the so-called wise man. He's living this miserable life, right? Governed by cold, hard reason, avoiding all the messy joys of marriage and family. But then, there's her world. In her world, life is seasoned with pleasure. She basically argues that what we call wisdom just makes us sad and crabby, while her influence, just a little dash of foolishness, is like the salt that makes the whole meal taste good. I mean, think about it. Who would ever get married or have kids if they actually rationally calculated all the trouble and expense ahead? Probably no one, right? That, she says, is her gift. And she claims to be our guide through every single stage of life. It's her touch of folly, she says, that makes infants so charming, that we cherish them. It's her influence that fuels all the passion and energy of our youth. And then, in old age, she gives us what might be the greatest gift of all, a second childhood. This kind of blessed forgetfulness that makes our final years happy and free of all the worries that torture the wise. Okay, and this is where we get to the real heart of the satire. Now that she's established how important she is, Folly takes us on this grand tour of society to point out who her biggest, most devoted followers really are. And here's a little spoiler for you. It's always the people who think they're the wisest. First up on her list, the scholars and grammarians. You know the type. The people who spend their entire lives getting old while arguing over footnotes and syllables. They think they're the absolute pinnacle of wisdom, but Folly just laughs at them. She says they foolishly wasted their one precious life on completely useless trivia. Next up are the theologians. Oh man, she really goes after them. She roasts them for creating these absurdly complex, unanswerable questions while totally ignoring the core message of their own faiths. They're busy arguing about mysteries no one can solve instead of focusing on the simple stuff like, being a good person. Then she turns her attention to the princes and kings. She completely mocks them for just living for pleasure, being totally ignorant of their duties. They think their expensive robes and fancy titles make them virtuous, but in reality, they're just slaves to their own desires, totally out of touch with their people. But her absolute sharpest criticism? That's saved for the popes and the high-up church officials. I mean, she says you'll see these decrepit old guys trying to act like young men, starting wars and turning laws, religion, and peace completely topsy-turvy. They've abandoned their spiritual duties for wealth and power. And you gotta remember, publishing something like this in 1511, that was incredibly risky. But then, just when you think this whole thing is just a brilliant, sharp-tongued satire, Folly's argument takes this surprising and honestly really profound turn. Yeah, she pivots. She goes from making fun of the foolishness of the wise to asking this really radical question, can folly actually be divine? What if the highest form of wisdom is really a form of folly? Her whole point here is that true Christian religion seems to have this alliance with folly. It just doesn't line up with worldly wisdom at all. I mean, think about it. Believing in things you can't see, forgiving your enemies. From a purely logical, worldly point of view, that's just plain foolish. And this gets to her idea of holy folly. It's all about rejecting that worldly wisdom, that intellectual pride, in favor of a simple, pure, kind of childlike faith in things you can't see. She argues that Christ himself praised babes and fools, not the super-learned scholars, and that the ultimate religious experience? It's a kind of madness where you're just completely outside yourself, lost in spirit. So why does this all matter? What should we take away from this 500-year-old satirical rant? Why is it still so important? Well, the Praise of Folly was this revolutionary work. It used humor to attack the pride and arrogance of the powerful, the scholars, the clergy, the rulers. But it's more than just an attack. It's really a celebration of our messy, imperfect, emotional humanity. Folly argues that the things that hold society together, like friendship and love, they only work because we foolishly overlook each other's flaws. So at its core, it's a call for humility, a reminder that true wisdom might just start with admitting how little we actually know. And that really leaves us with a question for our own time, doesn't it? In a world that's just obsessed with wisdom, with data, with knowing everything, have we forgotten how to be just a little bit foolish? Maybe, just maybe, it leaves us wondering if we've lost something important along the way.